Hey guys, welcome to my SMG Studio Tour. A lot of you guys have asked about how I do things, what I do, so I'm just going to take you through this fairly quickly. I'm going to start off with the rack here. First up, we got the Great River MP to Envy, which is a modern recreation of the Neve 1073. I used this on vocals, bass guitar, kick drums, a lot of stuff like that, and I use that in conjunction with the distressor below. Well, oftentimes I'll compress vocals on the way in just because it's really difficult to make something sound bad with a distressor. I also use that combination for my voiceover for my main show. Below that, we've got the Vintech Dual 72 microphone preamplifier. These days, it usually gets used on toms more than anything, but it's a nice solid preamp for API 512Cs. I use that for overheads, snare, guitars, all kinds of stuff. And as you can see, I've actually got a couple of free slots here, and I've got something coming in the mail from IGS Audio, which is going to go in there real soon, one of the slots anyway, and I'm sure you guys are really going to dig what that's all about. Alright, next up we've got the RME Fireface 800. That's my main interface. It just works. It works great. I've had this in my rack for years. It's just one of those things you can just, toss in your rack and not even think about it. It's just there doing its job day in, day out. Under that, I've got a PreSonus Digimax LT, whatever the fuck it is. This is like the 96 kilohertz version. I use this for auxiliary channels. The preamps aren't bad. There's built-in limiters and stuff too, which is really cool. I'll use this on channels that I'm not going to be using a lot in the mix. Like if I need to run like a couple of triggers or something like that to control gates on the live drums, I'll definitely be using that. Underneath that is the 2 Notes Torpedo Live. It's a digital load box. It's great if you want to run your tube amp at 4 in the morning and not bother anyone. If you're living in an apartment or some other situation where you can't make a lot of noise and you love real amps, get one of those. They're just awesome. And under that we got the Ebtech Hum Eliminator. Just running a couple of channels through that just to keep everything really nice and clean. Next up is my Peavey 5150. This amp gets a shit ton of use. It's wound up on a lot of records. This one's been bias modded. The power tubes run very, very, very hot, and it's got a much more pronounced mid-range than a stock 5150, and that's why you always see me running it with the mids dialed back quite a bit. It's not because I'm trying to take the mids out, I'm just trying to keep them under control. And up above that, I've got the Rev Generator 120. Which is absolutely fucking monstrous. I'm working on a review. I've been working on one for a while for this. Hopefully that's gonna see the light of day in the next week or two. Up above that, I've got the digital drum dial. You guys can expect a review on that very soon. Drum dial I've been using the drum dial for years. It's literally the first thing I reach for when I go to tune a drum set. Yeah, it's kind of if you want to record drums and you don't know how to tune, it's kind of required. I'd highly, highly, highly recommend getting one. They're just fantastic. And behind that, we've got the Derek Hess Bang Your Head print. This was at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. I picked this up in the late 90s. I thought that was a really cool piece of art. Big takeoff on the famous Da Vinci painting behind there. Yeah, just a cool, probably the only legitimate piece of art that I actually own. This has actually been signed and dated by the artist, so that's kind of cool. And here's a wide shot of my control room. I'm sure you guys are all used to seeing this. There's my Studio Project C1 I use for voiceovers. This is a John Sears designed reflection-free control room. The whole idea behind this room is so that the sound of the monitors hits me right in the sweet spot, right where the desk is sitting, and I don't have to listen to reflections bouncing around all over the place. In the center wall and on the side walls, you can see these little slats and whatnot. These are actually Helmholtz resonators, and these are designed to absorb low frequencies and keep them from bouncing around in the room. And that's my teleprompter. I made that for about $1. The glass was $1 from a dollar store, and I just found a cardboard box that I was able to punch a hole into. I use that in conjunction with an Asus tablet running some teleprompter software, and that does the trick. Back corner as well, you can see I've got some stuff kicking around there. A couple sets of sunglasses people left here. Set of paper towels because musicians are fucking pigs. All my cleanup stuff, again, because musicians are just fucking slobs and will piss on the floor and leave beer everywhere, you fucking name it. Isn't running a studio glamorous. Got my music stand below that. I use that to hold my teleprompter. Right here I've got my my field monitor. I use that to help me do my show. And in here I've also got a whole bunch of camera batteries and a whole bunch of camera batteries and shit like that, you know, like Magic Arm, Rode mic for in the field, batteries, chargers, lens. That's a Micro Four Third lens. And here great big honking batteries I use to power my field monitor. And here's a Black Magic Pocket pain in the ass camera. You know, I use this for shooting some music videos, and I did how to hold a microphone with this camera. As you can see, I've got a vintage Switar 25mm lens on there. That goes to like f1.4. I really love vintage glass. I've got a great big infrared filter in front of it because this camera is really sensitive to infrared, so it's kind of a pain in the ass to work with. Not to mention shooting in RAW. The battery lasts about 15 minutes on a full charge. It fucking sucks. And it just eats memory like you wouldn't believe. But it does give a pretty nice image. I don't do most of my show with this. Like I said, I did the Axe Effects shootout on that camera. And over here we've got one of my lights that I use on my show most of the time. This is a handmade Kino Flow. You really can't call it a Kino Flow. This is it's actually a fluorescent light. You've really just got to know where to source the proper bulbs to make them look good, because it used to be that shooting on fluorescent was a complete and total pain in the ass and would give you all kinds of weird skin tones and that kind of shit, but the technology's really come along. You can buy Kino Flow lights for about $1,000 a piece, or you can put one of these together for about maybe $40 including the bulbs, if you know what to get. I should really do a show on that eventually. They just look beautiful. The great thing about these lights is you don't have to put any kind of diffusion in front of them. They're just wonderfully soft. I use these for stills. I use these for video. They're just great. They're kind of fragile, so you have to be careful. We used these on the Tortured Saint video, and they performed beautifully, and we only lost one tube, and of course that's because the bass player stepped on it. Side of the desk, we've got a couple of guitars that I reach for most of the time. That's my Ibanez 7-string and my Schecter C1 Hellraiser. That Hellraiser is wound up on many records, mainly because it sounds great and it stays in tune just fantastic. On the desktop, I got a couple of overdrivers there. There's the Brutal Overdrive by Aris Effects, the Maxon OD808. I've got a Mackie Big Knob that I use, you know, to talk to musicians out in my performance room and just maintain all my levels and shit like that. Okay, over here we've got the PC. This is a Cooler Master Cosmos case, a whole bunch of big low rotation fans for very low noise. And the PC itself is a Intel Core i7-950 running 24 gigs of RAM. And on top of there, I've got a Countryman Direct box, which is fantastic, and a Radial X-Amp driver for reamping. Here's my DW kit. It's actually a 7-piece. I've got my extra bass drum downstairs. Yeah, so I've got 2 kick drums and 4 toms for it, plus numerous snares and whatnot. And yeah, this is where it's sitting right now. And you can see I've got a couple of battery operated LEDs in the background. They're fucking great. I love working with those, especially if we're out in the field and I need some light or it's really dark or whatnot. So that's my whole drum area. As you can see, I've got one of my extra bass traps kind of up along the wall right now. We're just trying to experiment with something. I didn't want to mount it permanently. And as you can see in the back corners here as well, I've got some handmade bass traps as well. I should really do an episode on how to build those. It's actually fairly simple, as long as you know where to source things. Okay, along the sidewall here, I've got a Fender Mexican Jazz that I picked up used for about $200. Kid had no idea what he had. That was the steal of the century. That's a fabulous sounding bass. It just winds up a lot. There's my BC Rich Warlock. I just recently put the Mojotone PW Hornet into. Ibanez 5-string bass. A couple of mics there. That's what's that? That's the Heil PR35 on top there. I'm going to be doing a review on that real soon. That's a new type of handheld vocal mic. Apparently you can cup it and it's not going to affect the sound. So if your singer's a moron, you want to get him one of those. Under that, you know, that's the case for my studio projects, C4 mics. Also got a Framus Cobra and a Mezzo Dual rectifier. Under that, we've got the Mezzo 4x12, and yes, my camera's shadow is in the shot. That's bad filmmaking. And on the cabinet, we've got SM57 and a Heil PR30 mic. I know Fluff highly recommends that mic. I'm going to be putting that to the test very soon as well. Homemade bass traps. An old Trainer YB1A in the back there. That's from about 1966. Okay, below the old Trainer is an angle cab loaded with vintage 30s as well. It's got a really distinct sound. Same speakers as in the Meza cab, but a much more different sounding cabinet because of the wood and the metal grill. I've got an old Sunbeta lead. That's great if you want, you know, some stoner rock type stuff. This was really popular with the grunge guys. I know the guys in Nirvana and the Melvins really like them. Under that, I've got a Peavey Windsor. Picked that up for about $200 at a Guitar Center on a Monday night. Cable storage. That's another Helmholtz resonator back there as well. Keep some of my extra snares stashed back there. A couple of Bolexes. That's a Gallion Kruger MLE solid state amp. I've really got to do a show on that. I've had that for about 20 years. What a great sounding amp. Yeah, and my mic locker. You know, I got like an old Studio Project C1 there. Rode NTK tube mic. Rode NT1, there's my Shure SM7, fuzz face pedal, a couple of direct boxes, some extra drum triggers, which I don't really use, some guitar strings, another Ebtech hum eliminator box. I'll show you what's in that cherrywood box in just a moment. My 421 cases are back there, you know, Maxon, OD 820, a whole bunch of extra crap. And lastly, we've got my vintage U87. This was a present to myself. I got this back in 2008 or early 2009, I think. This was my present to myself for quitting smoking. If you guys wonder why I got so fucking fat, that's why, because I smoked for 23 years. Anyway, so after I quit smoking for 6 months, I bought myself this. This came from an LA rental house called Audio Verite. Last man to use it before I got it was Fishbone. Killer mic. I use that on pretty much all my vocals that aren't screaming. So anybody who's singing or whatnot, that's the first mic I'll pick. It's the sound of records.